Everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Monday, May the 10th. We've got the new overlay screen loading, and it seems to be more consistently sticking to that. Apparently, we need to download something new. One of the things that's either being tested out or is just new in general on YouTube is the apparent ability, finally, to get back to something that you kind of could do many, many years ago. I think on YouTube, I think it worked, where theoretically, during a live stream, and only during a live stream at the moment, although it would make a lot of sense to add this feature to pre-recorded footages, you can click a button in the chat pop-up where they're kind of focusing on the live chat that says clip. It's a little picture of scissors, and I saw this on PewDiePie's live stream, and just make your own little clip, which there's a lot of questions there, certainly, as far as, like, if you make a public clip at a certain point, is YouTube going to come back and say you're harassing somebody because you made a clip of their own footage and it somehow embarrassed them? There are questions about if you make a clip, who gets the monetization, if anybody, on that. It is definitely trying to push for more features like Instagram and YouTube clips and things like that. Smaller videos. It's weird that YouTube is once again potentially focusing a little bit on the idea of shorter videos. Here we got another private battle, so we can claim this. I did that off screen. If I get one more Force Crafter win, I'll also get a classic card pack. I have 4 hours to do another private battle. Meanwhile, do I want to re-roll anything? For 40, Runecraft or Havencraft or Runecraft. Man, they just keep forcing me into Runecraft. But I guess if I can get one Runecraft victory and then move on, that might work. So yeah, I'm trying to get the live stream to load at 30 seconds delay and all, to see if maybe there is a way to specifically clip my live streams. And from the looks of it, I would say no. So it doesn't seem like that feature is gonna work for me, which is a shame, because honestly, if I had any kind of like very, very loyal fandom, they would clip out clips of anything I did that is even slightly interesting. That certainly would be appreciated. I imagine, like, because that's the level of editing that I don't particularly want to spend my time on. Also, right now, I'm experimenting with the Shantae Half Genie Hero Ultimate Edition Episode 1 premiering on my YouTube channel, and it seems like going live and premiering still seems to work fine, so there isn't any obvious conflict there. Of course, it's not good practice to start streaming and have something premiere. And theoretically, when they first introduced the idea of premiering videos, they really did want the creators to sit and watch their own content, basically, and respond to people commenting, which was a concept and is a concept that is just insane. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work if you have no followers, so there would be nobody in the chat, which is what the situation I'm in. But it also doesn't work if you have thousands or millions of followers, because then there's just too much chat happening. It's a very different experience potentially to it's a very, very different experience to respond to a comment when you have free time, when you're going through already posted comments on a forum versus trying to respond in real time to people. Like, for every one person commenting, you would need probably a fifth of a moderator's time. Like, or very possibly you would need one moderator for every single commentator to just balance it out, because that's how real conversations happen one-on-one with people, more often than not. So yeah, the whole premiere concept as it originally was sold by YouTube doesn't make a lot of sense, but I do think it makes an interesting way to highlight episode 1s of series on my channel. So I'm trying to take that concept and mold it into something that would make some level of sense. Speaking of making some level of sense, I've been playing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So that's pretty much my accountability section, except for the fact that I also, right near the end of Friday's stream, I thought to myself, yeah, there must be a way to kind of do that CNN 24-hour news thing and have a text scroll. And so that sent me down a rabbit hole of sorts, looking at not OBS plugins, but OBS scripts, because I've already looked at all the plugins and done a nice cycle of just looking at what state there are, and there was nothing there. And while there is a teletype script that exists, and they're almost, and I'll say almost is about the only right word to say here, there almost is a plugin for Chrome where I could highlight text, particularly in my case the titles, the headlines of news stories, and put that in a text file, and then have a teletype script in OBS read that text file and put it on top of the screen. That didn't quite work. But what I did find would work is a more automated process, certainly just using the RSS feeds of TechRaptor, Gamatsu, and Gamasutra to get to their top headlines just directly. And there's a program called Desktop Ticker. You can have multiple instances of that. And so all I did is install that program, make some adjustments to how it appears in OBS, capturing those windows, and that's all it took. So I was able to very quickly add text crawls to the top of my WebPeak screen. Now, generally without a need for a lot of people in chat to like show the chat, there really is no reason in my mind to mess up the game view. I could theoretically put the chat here, and I did have that for a brief time, but no, I don't think I want to go that way. Plus, in adding chat, then I all of a sudden needed to add rules to chat, and chat just kind of died. Like, the few times in which somebody would show up in chat, when I was playing Hearthstone in particular, it was to just kind of demand I either play a different game or demand that I take the time to friend them while I'm live streaming, even though the information for them to friend me was already in the comments. Comments on YouTube clearly not being read by most people, and clearly they hide them more than they focus on them. So yeah, I don't really think that there's a reason to have like a news crawl over Hearthstone. We should just let Hearthstone be Hearthstone. But when we come over here and we do a web peek, there is now a factor to this. It seems to me like I'm gonna have to click though for it to work. So I'll have to remember that. So in the past, we had in the web peak, the web page was all the way to the top, but the top of the Chrome browser was being clipped off, so it wasn't really fitting a full 1920 by 1080 screen resolution. So what I've done is I've taken the web page part of this and moved it down, which just creates black at the top, and replaced it with 2 instances of desktop ticker. The only problem with desktop ticker in general is you can see the mouse does not go over them because they're not actually there on the screen. They're actually hidden on a different display, on the first display, where the web page is on the second display. Same is true also for the gameplay of Shadowverse, that is on the first display. Desktop ticker does kind of announce itself as desktop ticker every now and then. And then a different Lua script lets you display the time. However, I don't really see a reason to display the time, particularly since a large percentage of people watching my videos are more than likely going to be watching them later on. And frankly, the only reason why time ever shows up there is because of the fact that the YouTube what am I trying to say here? The only reason time is even shown on like CNN is because CNN is trying to be everything to everybody, and I don't know how far I want to go down that route. Like, one of those feeds, since they are just the same thing at 2 different positions here, if we bring it up, and I'm gonna have to figure out some better solution here. One of these is definitely just the exact same thing at a different position. Some of these articles also are just opinion pieces and not things I would specifically decide to show. And I'm also seeing that there's some pixels animating behind here, and that doesn't really make sense to me. I thought I had that right, but there's something wrong with that. Yeah, but I could have one of these bars certainly just telling video game stock market stuff, like get the top 100 video game stock market numbers, and if I can get that in RSS feeds, that would work fine, even if it's a specific RSS feed for every single video game company. Is there a real reason to do that? I don't know. I kind of need some feedback on that. Do the average video gamers or even niche video gamers really care if Nintendo or Sony or anybody else is trading at a specific time? I mean, it may very well be the case now with the whole game stonks and GameStop stuff. Like, it may very well be a case that we are just aging as a fandom to the point where video game stock market numbers would be interesting things to show. And that's pretty much the same thing as CNN, is that they just put things there to crawl and have motion and to fit the crop and to catch people's attention. So I think if I can get it to work, which is kind of an if at the moment, I'm still having some trouble, clearly. This could work fairly well. but I am going to definitely have to work on it some more, because there's definitely some factors that I'm missing on too. I've also realized when setting that up that while there is a crop feature that you can install with a plugin, there in OBS Studio in general is also a crop feature that you do with the transform settings. And so using a third-party plugin to do something that can already be done with the transform settings is redundant and unnecessary. That is kind of an example of if OBS was easier to figure out and it wasn't this overly complicated software, or at least software that can become overly complicated for your very specific needs, they would make it a little bit easier to figure it out. And that is kind of an example where they should just have a crop button that pops up somewhere on every source, and with that crop button they should at that point try to link it back to the same place before. It's not uncommon to specifically want to have a button that two different buttons that take you to the same place, and that's really what it needs. Let's see. I think probably what I need to do, if I was to guess, to fix the text scroll so it's always going, is I probably need to force it down to my third monitor and set it up as always on top. I think that would be the solution. So let's see if I can do that without just completely wasting everything. Now I am going to use the clock plugin specifically to I am going to specifically use it as a way of, there we go, as a way of watching my own recordings. That way, at a certain point, I don't need a secondary clock in my room, or to press the start menu to see the clock on the computer. So I already had a special screen that told me how long I was recording, and adding that clock script to tell me what time. It actually isn't just a clock script, it's actually time and date, so it probably wouldn't hurt me much to make a special effort to make sure that gets it tells me the date too. Man, I'm stumbling today. I can already feel it. But yeah, I don't feel like overall it's worth it's worth it to tell people who are watching what time it is. Alright. See, now I'm trying to make things on the fly and that's not gonna work. Let's see. I could slow down and scroll up. That's another thing certainly I could work on, is have it so that the scrolling took
how's everyone doing tonight?
Took longer or less time. So let's see how that works. Well, that seems to work better. Now, it instantly is there. Of course, the problem with this right now is, like, I am unable to really get my recording software now to fit the right size that it should be fitting. It doesn't want to go where it should be. And that might be a problem. See there, I just minimized it, one of them.
From the depths of depravity.
This match is mine.
And see me goofing off right now with this and losing arena matches. It's really just another example of me not really caring about arena matches. I don't understand
How did I lose?
the point here. More than likely, what I need to do is close this and then close that and then see if I can resize now. Yes. And then I need to probably relaunch both of them. I am distracted. I thought I had this all working, and this is just kind of one of those examples of how things don't really work in practice when you actually bring them out and about. Hmm. 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 I've almost got it. Almost got something that works, I think. Now I just need to adjust. I got it to stretch back. I just need to now adjust the height. There we go. All right. So, web peak works. Game works. Web peak works. Game works. All right. I think we've got it. I took off the clock too. Let's try again and let's actually start paying some attention. So yeah, that was a waste of time, certainly, but we're learning new things, and certainly that means something too, is that we want to be learning new things, and we want to be testing new things out, or I do. Like I want to improve. It's not like I've done a major amount of improvement with YouTube and the content of my footage. I've been watching which I guess this also falls under the accountability section, is I've been watching a Netflix series called Jupiter's Legacy, and so far I'm liking it. I liked it quite a bit, but also I feel like they said part 1, so I feel like it's probably going to end on a cliffhanger, and then I'll have to wait several months to see the rest of it. But one of the things that was happening, and I don't know if it's my network, which is still having weird problems or what, but the audio sync was getting messed up. And so the audio was playing a lot of times a second or two ahead. And it really highlighted how often video creators show the person talking when they talk, and there will just be straight up a cut to the face of a character before they say any lines of dialogue, so you know who's talking, and it is very relatable, even as somebody who probably wouldn't have thought it would have affected them too much. It definitely does affect me to hear someone talking off screen. That feels a little weird, it feels a little confusing, and it's just not something that's as desirable as simply having it cut to somebody's face to see their lips move while watching the show, even if it just immediately cuts away again. And I guess when you're filming real people, it probably helps to cut away quite a bit anyways. And so when I think about that as far as how my YouTube content would be affected, it definitely does occur to me that if I were to do a face cam and there was anything to see there, which there isn't, I think it probably would work. Be a little bit more relatable, and I can see more today than a week ago as to why people would want that, or would think they would want that. Otherwise though, there isn't any actionable thing I can do
Did I miss that?
around that thought. Not unless I'm just gonna try and become a VTuber, and I doubt that's the case.
Unbelievable.
Right. So is there anything else I need to talk about as far as accountability section? I played Indiana Jones Fate of Atlantis. That is a weird game because there's 3 different middle paths, and then the game merges again at the beginning, first act, and the last, what is probably a 4th act, honestly, or 5th act even. So yeah, I got through one of the middle acts, and now I'm going to jump back to the split point at the end of the first path, at the end of the first act, and then I'm going to play the second path, and then I'm going to jump back to the split at the end of the first act again, and then I'm going to play the third path. So I've done all of Act 1 and all of Path A. Now I'm going to do Path B. Then I'm going to do Path C. Then I'm going to do the final act of the game. And I'll probably do the final act based off of a save file from when I did first. Fate of Atlantis, as a point-and-click adventure game, offers a lot of content, but it offers it in an awkward and kind of bad way. It was an interesting experiment that made sense to try back when it came out, but you can definitely see now in hindsight it would have made a lot more sense for them to not have 3 branching paths and instead simply merge the entirety of the 3 middle acts into one longer linear path. And through that longer linear path, you would have been able to experience all of the content the game had to offer. Particularly since there's many locations where on certain paths there's just kind of nothing there. There was an entire dig site in the path I went through that had nothing whatsoever, just empty rooms, no people, no items to collect, nothing to do there. You didn't even need to really walk to the left side of the screen to see that the path existed to get to the dig site. And there definitely are other paths that you don't even get to the same locations, and you don't even reach Atlantis in the same way. And it would have made a lot more sense to just simply combine all of those ideas into one longer story, because then you could eliminate the redundancy. And clearly they were trying to sell based on the number of hours of gameplay you could get for Fate of Atlantis, but it doesn't kind of work at all. There is also some weirdness as far as just the game direction in Fate of Atlantis. It has these lovely huge background art, but then it oddly didn't bother to ever animate the female lead sitting down, and yet it did bother to animate 2 of the bad guys sitting down for one scene, which that's just little pixel graphics. It didn't bother to reanimate some items when it could have redrawn the items, or drawn the items better. So yeah, I think there was probably better uses of the time. It didn't bother to ever animate a zoom in on Indiana Jones or any of the characters when they're having conversations, which would have made a lot of sense, frankly, if they had better than pixel graphics versions of the characters that you could see their faces while they're talking.
Let's get this party started.
there are definitely some paths you can go down in the center where you're all alone, so you don't actually talk or communicate with people, where there's other paths where you're going to talk to a lot more people. A lot of the characters are written as just crazy, silly characters that show up and then die by the next time you've seen them. Like, that literally happens. That's twice you meet with people, and the second time you see them, they're dead. Where it would have made more sense to merge some of those characters together. There is certainly the thought that now that Disney owns Indiana Jones, which, wait, does Indiana Jones is it owned by Disney? I've been saying it is. I guess it isn't. I guess that might be part of the problem as to why nothing's happening with it, is that I don't think the Spielberg content, like Indiana Jones, is owned by Disney, but the Star Wars George Lucas Arts company was bought by Disney and made Indiana Jones and Fate of Atlantis because George Lucas was friends with Spielberg. So it would be a whole new negotiation, and I'll have to remember to mention that in my footage. It's like, oh yeah, it wouldn't be as easy as Disney just saying, hey, let's make a whole bunch of point-and-click adventures, let the interns make them based on Indiana Jones, and heck, if we want to keep Harrison Ford busy, we could have him be the voice actor for the point-and-click adventures. But it would be a little bit more complicated than that. Although it still doesn't really change the core conceit. The Spielberg estate, like, well, Steven Spielberg's not dead, but his production company should be doing something with Indiana Jones other than just making the 5th movie, allegedly. He should be licensing it out to more video games than just the Lego Indiana Jones series. And there is a decent argument that it shouldn't just be a point-and-click adventure game. It should be something closer to Uncharted or Tomb Raider. And there is certainly only Steven Spielberg's company to blame, the fact that Tomb Raider and Uncharted were able to steal all the oxygen out of adventure-style games and basically rip off the idea of Indiana Jones as a character. Although arguably Indiana Jones as a character is not even that good of a character the way he's written, so it would also be helpful in the video games to modernize him and rewrite him so he is less of a jerk, because he kind of is.
I see to the ends of the world.
Let's see.
Mana, come forth.
Lame.
Time to dance.
Lame.
So yeah, you definitely could experiment with Indiana Jones as a character in the video games, and there definitely should be more games out there. And I could also see that there may be a history. I doubt the Infernal Machine or the other Indiana Jones game that isn't a point-and-click adventure game, Tomb of the Emperor's Tomb. I wouldn't be surprised if both of those were particularly poorly received, and that would explain why they haven't done anything for a while, but that probably was 15-20 years ago that the last Indiana Jones game came out. I don't think there's been any kind of arcade game or even Universal Studios ride or anything around that. And I would say Indiana Jones makes a lot more sense as a video game character than the Blade Runner character. What was his name? Deckard Cain? That's just a guess. That's probably wrong. Yet, the only Harrison Ford game that has been recently attempted to be remodeled was the Blade Runner game. And I guess he's in the Lego Star Wars game too. He would have been in episode 7 at least. Can't do that. Don't want to do that. Not sure I want to do that. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do this.
This match is mine.
Be seeing ya.
Time to dance.
There we go. Put that on the field too. Well, yeah.
Nothing this forest warrior can't do.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing any more tweaking, hopefully, on OBS. I can't think of any other games. There is a script, it's very early, it's version 0.1.0, that would use TensorFlow to censor images, so it would actually use your GPU to do a image recognition to say, okay, we think this is adult content, we're gonna blur the screen. I could not get it to install. There's a lot of making sure you have the right Python, and we're up to like Python 3.9 and maybe even Python 4, and it seems like all the scripts are designed more around Python 3.6 only, which, okay, that
You don't stand a chance.
that affects things certainly. And then there's some other scripts that I'd like to try. I looked at a lot of them, and a lot of them looked interesting, but
How's this?
also a lot of time, and I don't want to once again start a project that and get into the weeds of projects and then maybe never finish them, maybe abandon them, because I'm setting myself up to go in circles as far as just, hey, let's work on that, and then that didn't work, so let's give up on that and work on something else, and just never really finishing anything. A lot of projects and a lot of experiments do just end in abandonment, though. That is kind of the scientific way, so I don't want to be too hard on myself, but yeah, I also want to be cautious to not just be ADHD about it. So I want to come over here and actually show Hoods and Outlaws. Is this a single player game? No, it's an online PvP game, English full audio. It is $29.99, but really if you want the first year season pass, it's $49.99. We've been seeing a decent amount of advertisement around this game. It kind of feels like it is the new what was the sword one called from Ubisoft? I forget the name of that game, but I would have to say I don't think that that's really where we would want to be as far as what am I even trying to say though? Man. Obviously my insomnia is still a problem. Obviously I didn't sleep too well, and I haven't slept enough. I've overslept, and it's just been poor quality of sleep, and it's just like, it's every possible way they can be driven crazy, and so now I'm just having an incredibly hard time keeping my thoughts straight or getting my thoughts straight. Can't play that card if I want to play this in 2 turns. And yeah, I'm just totally losing my train of thought over and over again as I'm distracting myself.
Ready to pounce.
Yeah. What I need to do is bring the screen over here for a second so I can then go look at this screen and see if this works. And it didn't. Okay. That's all I needed to check. Good. Yeah, there was another script that purported to be able to get the YouTube chat a little bit better. It's not working at all. I do have a way to bring in the YouTube chat. The problem is getting the CSS to make it look right is so far like not worth the effort. It hasn't worked in a long time since YouTube kind of changed everything. So yeah. So I just wanted to test to see if that plugin would work. I want to uninstall as many scripts as possible if they're not really going to work or if they're not going to be useful. That way, if there ever is a need to reinstall or copy things over, I'm not just installing things. There was one script that did a better blur. So
Don't underestimate me. My barrier is impenetrable.
yeah. Not that one. Which one was it called? So yeah, here's like the script Gaussian blur, which you probably could have done with the other blur, but I couldn't figure out the settings. But this is definitely more along the lines of what you would be looking for. Of course, I wouldn't want to normally blur out the text. It would be possible certainly to fix some of that. But yeah, if I ever find a way to potentially cover adult content, something like this might be good enough. It would take a ton of tweaking, certainly, because right now at this level the blurring is just enough to make it unreadable as far as text, but it's still very recognizable as far as what you're generally looking at. And see, and that is the nuance there that YouTube will never tell you, certainly, is the idea of like, well, if I blurred an adult visual novel or an adult game out and it was as